Welcome everyone to the Thrive series. My name is Kaya Varich and I am the Program Manager for Cancer Survivorship at mHealth Fairview. On behalf of the Thrive Planning Team, I'm happy to welcome you to the Fall 2023 series. If you have attended a Thrive program before, welcome back. If you are new to the series, we are so happy to have you here. We were delighted to have a great session in the last couple of weeks and are looking forward to 2 weeks after tonight, spending it here with you all again. Just to summarize again about a little bit about our program, the Thrive program is a collaboration between mHealth Fairview and the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota. We are proud to offer 6 sessions this fall, and today is the 4th session, so don't forget to mark your calendars for the first 2 Tuesdays in November for the remaining session. We are taking next week off for Halloween. You can pick and choose to attend sessions and to rewatch the sessions on our website at z.umn.edu/Thrive series. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amna to get us started.
Thanks, Kaya. I'm so happy to be here to kick off already our 4th Thrive session of the season. My gosh, I feel like time has just flown by. Well, as Kaya mentioned, my name is Amna Hussein, and I am the Community Outreach and Engagement Manager at the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota. Tonight, we will be hearing from Renee on finding joy in nature. We will be recording tonight's session and every session as we have, so you can refer back to the recordings on our website at z.umn.edu/Thrive series. We edit out the recordings before we post it to ensure your privacy. So before we get started, we would like to take a moment to locate the mute and chat buttons. During tonight's presentation, please use the chat box to submit your comments and questions, and you can also use the Q&A feature. And at the end, Renee will be available to answer questions. And so also at that time, you can unmute yourself to ask questions. Also, if you are a University of Minnesota employee or a spouse participating in the university's employee well-being program, I'm going to put a chat or a link in the chat shortly to complete the survey to mark your attendance today to earn your well-being points. All right, without further ado, I will now hand it over to Renee. Renee, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Already having technical difficulties, so bear with me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you and can see you.
So let me just try this one more time. Here we go. You're seeing my whole screen though now, right?
It's loading, but now you just need to share on presenter mode.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And now can you see my whole screen?
Yes.
Okay, it's good, right?
Yep, you are good to go.
Perfect. Okay, well, that was the hardest part of the night. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Tonight, I want to talk about the power of nature and probably what some of you found very interesting and have been hearing a lot about, which is forest bathing. Just by way of introduction, my name is Renee Levesque. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Minnesota. I'm an animal lover and I'm a gardener. I love being outdoors. In 2018, I experienced my first guided forest bathing walk. And it was at a time in my life when I was experiencing a lot of stress at work, and I just was not doing a good job of taking care of myself. And I had heard about forest bathing, but didn't really understand what it was. So I thought I'll try it, see if it can help me, rest and rejuvenate and relax. And it did all of those things. And so I was sold. In 2020, I underwent a pretty dramatic life change, and I left my 29-year career in social work to basically become a caretaker on a property. And it was during that time, over the next year or so, that I became familiar with Gilda's Club in Twin Cities. And Gilda's Club is a cancer support community. And because of my social work background and my desire to continue doing work with people, I decided to join the Gilda's Club Twin Cities, and I facilitate a living with cancer support group. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. In 2021, in November of 2021, I decided to explore becoming certified as a nature and forest therapy guide through the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. And in November of 2021, I embarked on a 6-month journey to do just that. And in September of 2023, I completed the full course training by participating in a 4-day immersion in forest bathing. Since my life change in 2020, of course, the pandemic has come and gone, but still continues to create stress and anxiety for people. Since that time, we have seen a 25% rise globally in anxiety and depression and other mental health concerns. There have been lots and lots of increase in chronic conditions. And something that I see working with individuals at Gilda's Club, especially people who were diagnosed with cancer at the same time that the pandemic was happening, they really began to experience a lot of isolation because of needing to quarantine and be away from people because of their compromised immune system. So we know that because of isolation, increased depression, anxiety, chronic conditions, it is more important than ever for us to take care of ourselves and each other. So tonight, our time together we're really going to scratch the surface. I want to talk about the benefit of nature on humans, but I would like for us to really look at how our interaction and communing with nature can help us become healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, and relationally, meaning with each other and with the more than human world or nature. I'll take you through a discussion of what I call common sense benefits on the impact that nature has on humans and our health. I'm going to provide some supporting research that is a little dry and a little boring, but it helps us understand and really fully appreciate the positive impacts that nature has on humans and our health. I'm going to identify and introduce you to what I call 5 active ingredients of nature. And then I'll take you through an introduction of Shinrin-yoku, which is technically the beginning of forest bathing, and also forest bathing by the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. After that, I will do a little kind of practice embodiment exercise with you. And I hope after our evening together, you will feel more inspired than ever to connect with nature as part of your health plan. So I'm going to ask you just to consider 4 quick questions that I have for you. And these are for you to reflect on your own. The first question is, do you have a regular routine of being in or near nature? The next question is, I'd like for you to really reflect on and remember a time recently when you were in nature doing nothing. So not exercising, golfing, gardening, walking, hiking, just simply being in nature. And recall a memory of your favorite place outside in nature. Just think about what stands out for you about it. And finally, what is it that you most appreciate about nature? And for our next slide, if you have your phone handy, I'd like you to take your phone out, and there's a QR code on the left-hand side of the screen. And if you would, in one word, how would you describe nature? You scan the QR code and it will give you a prompt. And if you could go ahead and just type that word in. Great. Thanks for doing that. So why now? Why is it so important now for us to think about nature and how it relates to our health? And I would say that we are currently in the midst of a cultural crisis. The crisis is related to so many different things. And I would say it's not just something that's happening here locally or in the United States. It's really a global crisis. We are living in an incredibly fast-paced world. People are finding it very difficult to slow down and to simply be. We are overworked and overscheduled with work and social commitments and getting kids here and there. We might be experiencing chronic conditions and other health concerns that require lots of juggling of appointments or taking medications. We have an overload of media, screen time. There's a political divide going on. People are experiencing a lot of financial, social, and emotional stresses. And so because of all of these things, it's incredibly important for us to begin to practice how to just be, how to clear our minds, how to allow our bodies to rest, rejuvenate, and repair. So how can we connect with nature, and how does this connection impact humans? This is what I'm talking about when I say sort of the common sense impact that nature has on humans. We know a lot of this, but I want to just identify it and point it out for you. So the connection between humans and nature, being in nature can help reduce depression, anxiety, stress. It can reduce mental fatigue and help clear our minds. It can reduce anger and aggression. It can reduce our experiences of physical pain. It can change and reduce symptoms associated with ADHD, trauma, psychosis, and other mental health conditions. It can also have an impact on cognitive decline in older adults. And so on the flip side of that, being with nature can boost our mood. It can greatly impact the quality and quantity of our sleep. It can shift our confidence and boost our self-esteem. It can impact our cognitive functioning, increase our ability to focus, increase creativity. It can impact our immune functioning and improve our immune system. It can increase our longevity, improve our energy levels, increase motivation, and it can improve the quality of life for those living with dementias and Alzheimer's disease. It can also impact our relationships with one another and with the natural world. It can improve our sense of gratitude, our willingness and desire for generosity and selflessness, and it can increase our patience and life satisfaction. It can also improve our motivation. So people often think about nature and humans as separate. I think of us as the same. I think that humans are nature and nature is health. I like this little image here of a tree stump and the rings of a tree next to a human fingerprint and how similar those look. And it's a reminder to me that we are, in fact, nature. So one of the benefits of nature is it requires no prescription for us to be outside receiving the health benefits of it. It's all natural, it's cost effective, it's accessible to most everybody, and it has minimal side effects. So this is part of the scientific research I was telling you I was going to talk a little bit about. Our evolutionary history as humans has been spent living outside in nature. So 99% of our evolutionary history, we have spent living outside. It is only in the past 1% of our existence as humans when we have lived in the way that we're living now, indoors with technology, using cars and equipment and machines, and not communing with nature like we have in our evolutionary history. There is a biologist who in the 1980s by the name of Wilson, who popularized a theory of biophilia, which basically translates to love of life in the living world. And his theory was that because we spent 99% of our evolutionary history living outside and amongst nature, that we actually have a biological drive and need to connect with nature, that it's actually part of our DNA and who we are. He also suggests that humans are drawn to and connected to things that have helped them thrive and survive. So it is common sense to understand that we are connected to nature in this way, because nature has helped us survive. Water, everything outside has helped us. So time spent in nature is also not simply meant to be recreational. We do a lot of things outside that's recreational, but nature also offers restorative and preventative medicine. A researcher in the 1980s by the name of Ulrich studied groups of patients who were recovering from the same surgery. And half of those patients were put in recovery rooms where the window to the outside had them looking at another building or a brick wall. The other half of those patients were in a recovery room where their window was to the outside, where there were trees and nature that they could see while they were recovering. And what he learned was that seeing nature and seeing the trees outside of the windows actually facilitated and accelerated the recovery time of those individuals. And this was proven essentially by reduced recovery time, by reduced number of days spent in the hospital. The patients requested less pain medication, and they also had more positive interpersonal relationships with their care providers, as indicated by fewer negative notations in the medical chart. So simply seeing trees and nature accelerated humans, triggered healing. So that was very exciting information. Dr. Ching Li is a leading expert in Tokyo on the health benefits of natural environments. And he believes that humans are literally hardwired to affiliate with the natural world. And he suggests that just as health improves when we are in and amongst nature, so too our health suffers when we are disconnected from it. So that's pretty powerful, so that we don't see nature just as healing, but when we are prevented from being outside and prevented from engaging with the natural world, we may actually feel disconnected and suffer from some health consequences as a result of that. And then the last study that I want to talk to you a little bit about is by Kaplan and Kaplan in the 1990s, and this is called the attention restoration theory. And these researchers basically discovered and tried to understand how exposure to nature restores our focus and our ability to concentrate. They talked about something called soft fascination, which is essentially an effortless and easy attentiveness to something. And they discovered that nature allows us to hold our attention effortlessly. So if you think about being outside and seeing a beautiful landscape, seeing a mountain range, a beautiful ocean, it is very easy to engage with and to draw your attention to those things, that you pay very close attention with little effort at all. And this, in fact, enables our brain to rest. So another very interesting thing about nature is a sense of awe. And this here image is an image of my husband and my granddaughter. Just the other night, we saw this beautiful rainbow, and it was breathtaking and awe-inspiring just to see the full rainbow. And researchers suggest that when we have a sense of awe, oftentimes related to nature, that it actually can lower inflammation in our body, connect us to other people, and improve our mood. So the active ingredients of nature I'm going to talk to you about, we have 5 of them. The first active ingredient of nature, obviously trees and plants. And trees and plants have lots of health benefits for us. The most critical one that I'm going to talk to you about tonight is called phytoncides. And phytoncides are naturally occurring antimicrobial compounds, basically essential oils that trees naturally emit and release in order to fight off bacteria, fungus, pests, and virus. And these trees, when they release these essential oils to basically protect themselves, they're also protecting the trees around them. What we know is that pines, cedars, spruce trees, especially are very, they emit these very frequently, but also trees like locusts, oak trees, and then plants such as garlic and onions release these phytoncides. And not only do these chemicals help trees and plants, but they also help humans. So when we are walking amongst these kinds of plants and trees, we also are breathing in and taking in these phytoncides, which in our bodies increase our own natural killer cell activity. So our bodies have natural killer cells, and the phytoncides actually activate them. And these cells attack stressed cells in our bodies that could potentially turn cancerous or otherwise sick. And so while phytoncides don't fight cancer, they do increase our body's natural ability to protect itself and to become active against stressed cells. It boosts our immune system when we are among these trees. It can also reduce our blood pressure and reduce anxiety. The term phytoncides was coined in 1928 and literally means exterminated by the plant. The next active ingredient in nature is water. This makes a lot of sense. People love to be by water. I'm sure people have heard about negative ions, which are sort of the mist that comes off of fast-moving water, rivers, waterfalls, and this is especially common in forested and mountainous areas. And these negative ions can reduce symptoms of depression and increase oxygen flow to the brain. Hearing water provides a meditative, soothing experience. And the natural rhythm of water, whether it be, like a babbling brook, the ocean tide, a raging river, it can impact our own internal rhythms and give us a sense of peace. And previously, when I talked about humans being nature, here's another example. We're drawn to things that are natural and have helped us survive over thousands and thousands of years. Water is one of them. Humans are 55 to 75% made up of water, so it makes a lot of sense that we are drawn to it in nature. Soil is another active ingredient. This is a picture of my garden. Some of you probably spend time gardening outside and have positive experiences and feel good when you're out there, which is not surprising. Soil has Mycobacterium bacchae, which is a naturally occurring microorganism in the soil. And when we are playing in the soil, digging in it, breathing it, maybe it gets on your hands and in your mouth a little bit. This helps boost our immune functioning. It also increases our serotonin production. Serotonin is a very important neurotransmitter in the brain that helps us regulate our mood and our metabolism. It helps reduce aggression, can help regulate our sleep and our appetite, and can decrease anxiety. Fractals are another really important ingredient in nature. And fractals are sometimes called nature's roughness. They're essentially patterns that are found in the natural world that are uncommon in man-made structures. So you'll find them in the shapes of snowflakes, in leaves. You'll see here maybe in petals, in ocean waves, galaxy clusters. There is just numerous fractals in nature. Scientists have measured human physiological responses when viewing these natural fractals. And when people are under stress, they recover 60% better and faster when viewing these natural fractals. Also, when measuring using EEGs, it has been determined that viewing brain fractals can increase the brain waves in your alpha brain waves in your brain, which is an indication of a wakeful, restful state. We know that people living in urban areas and experiencing a lot of visual stimuli coming in, it is harder for them to tune into nature's fractals, making it harder for them to have the benefits of just being simply out in nature without all of that other noise and visual stimulation. The final ingredient, active ingredient of nature, is nature sounds. And this is in the form of bird song and wind and any other natural sounds that you can hear. We know that listening to natural nature sounds can increase our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps drive immune system behavior and reduces fight or flight, reduces our stress hormones, cortisol levels. Hearing these sounds can increase mental alertness and improve our mood. The World Health Organization every year attributes thousands of early deaths, to stroke and heart attack because of high levels of background noise. And we know that urban noise is considered one of the greatest pollutants of the modern world. The three most soothing sounds identified are wind, water, and birdsong. So I want to talk a little bit about our autonomic nervous system, because this is really what we try to tune into in being in nature, and what I'll later talk about in terms of forest bathing. So our sympathetic nervous system is essentially the fight or flight response that we have. So it is a fight or flight. It's to perceived or real threat. Can also happen from chronic stress, which I talked a little bit about earlier, that we're under a lot of pressure and we're overstimulated and overscheduled. So when we are in fight or flight mode, basically our body is responding to try to protect itself and to avoid danger. It's everything our body does, essentially without thinking about it, such as breathing, our respirations, our blood pressure, and our organ functions. When activated, when this fight or flight or sympathetic system is activated, it produces stress hormones, and it increases our adrenaline flow, and it essentially prevents us from resting, digesting, learning, remembering, restoring, and relating to people. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic parts of our autonomic nervous system are meant to really keep the body in balance. And so when our body is constantly in this fight or flight, we are not in balance. The parasympathetic system, which is really what we want to engage, and how I hope that you'll see nature can help you be engaged, is essentially our rest and digest mode. So the rest and digest mode is a way that our bodies can begin to mend themselves, and it can do this in three different ways. So when our bodies are in rest and digest, we're able to absorb nutrition through proper digestion. And if you eat incredibly healthy food, you're conscious of what you put into your body, but you are not in a rest and digest mode, it doesn't matter. Your body will not absorb that nutrition in the way that it should. Your body really has to be in a restful state in order to take full advantage of the nutrition. The second way is that it allows our organs to process and eliminate toxins. And then the third way is that it provides our muscles time to relax, release tension and stress, and to rejuvenate itself. So I want to talk with you a little bit about forest bathing. And Shinrin-yoku and forest bathing are sort of used interchangeably. Shinrin-yoku came out of Japan in about the 1980s, and historically the Japanese have been doing lots of nature-based meditative practices. But in the 1980s, when Japan underwent a very significant shift in their economy from an agrarian or agriculturally based economy to a tech economy, essentially people moving from rural parts of the country to urban prefectures, there was an incredible corresponding increase in autoimmune diseases, cancers, and mental health conditions. So the Japanese government was very interested in understanding this correlation and this epidemic, and they conducted research and actually responded with some recommendations. And what they discovered was that the time that people used to spend out in nature obviously had changed. Now they're in urban settings. And in response to understanding that correlated increase in disease, they began studying the impact of time spent in the forest on the human condition. And they discovered these phytoncides that we talked about earlier, this execution by plant, and how phytoncides in nature were having an effect on humans by increasing their natural killer cells. When people would go and walk, in these research studies and spend time in the forest, doing sensory work with the forest, not exercising, but really becoming embodied and using their senses to move through the forest. They started by testing, before people went into the forest, testing their saliva. And they discovered biomarkers in the saliva that showed stress, anxiety, and depression. And after they came out of the forest, these biomarkers were significantly different. And the health benefits that occurred and that were measured actually lasted for up to 2 weeks after people spent time out in the woods and in the forest. So Shinrin-yoku technically translates to forest bathing, which is how we get the term forest bathing. But it is actually also, it's taking in the atmosphere of the forest. It's like bathing through your senses, bathing in the forest. So the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, which is the organization, is based here in the United States. They've trained 2,400 guides since starting their practice across the world. They learned a lot from the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku. And the way that the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy practices their version of forest bathing is slightly different. But what you can expect if you're able to go out on a forest bathing walk is you should expect about a 2 to 3 hour gentle guided walk, sometimes called a wander. And it's structured around a few invitations, and everything is invitational in a forest bathing walk. But the first thing that happens is something called POP, or Pleasures of Presence. And it is about a 20-minute long embodiment, I'll call it exercise, where the guide will essentially have you go through all of your senses and using the forest or nature to prompt you to tune into your senses. This embodiment helps the body move into the parasympathetic system that we talked about and where we want to be for rest and digest. The next invitation is called What's in Motion, and it further helps people to slow down and simply notice what's around them. And the rest of forest bathing walk is through what we call partnership invitations, where you are invited to experience and to relate with nature in an authentic way through your senses. Throughout the walk, you have opportunities to simply share what you're noticing without expectation. Everything is very slow paced, it's relaxed, and it's sensory. One of the ways that forest bathing walk is unique and different than other kind of meditative practices is it really invites you to stay focused on the pleasurable and what feels good and what feels right to you in the moment. It also, through the ANFT, we are very interested in the relation between humans and relationship between humans and what we call the more than human world or other living things in nature. There's no right or wrong way to do or to participate in a forest bathing walk. And any invitation is modifiable. So if you're offered an invitation, perhaps to get to know a tree or to greet a being, or, to sit and simply experience nature through your senses, you can do it however you choose to do it. There really is no right or wrong way to do it. And one of the last parts of a forest bathing walk is called sit spot. And it is really just permission to sit and do nothing, and to basically experience what's happening around you with no expectations. And I think about a Spanish proverb that says, how beautiful it is to do nothing and then rest afterwards. So worldwide, as I said, the ANFT has trained 2,400 forest bathing guides. And I would encourage you to consider participating in an in-person walk or a virtual walk. And at the end of our presentation today, I will give you some resources for doing that. So how does forest therapy and forest bathing promote health? It is, again, an embodied relationship with nature. So forest bathing invites us to have that embodied relationship with nature. It invites and kind of orchestrates a very slow pace. It can help us with a remembering of who we are and where we belong. One of my training guides frequently said to us, tension is who we think we are, and relaxation is who we really are. We also are welcome to be released of expectations. So many people have probably practiced mindfulness exercises. For me, that has never been something that's been easy or terribly enjoyable. Forest bathing is really about embodiment. It's really being in your body and experiencing through your senses. And so for me, embodiment versus mindfulness has been an easier process. It's helped me with what I like to call monkey mind. So if you have a mind that wanders, sitting with your senses might help, and it can help you slow down. I'm also, the other difference between meditation and forest bathing is this notion that you're encouraged to spend time with pleasure and enjoyment and play, which is different than a focus on gratitude. And then the other thing is that thinking is optional. So for those of us who maybe spend too much time in our brains, in our minds, senses are automatic. You don't have to think about a bird song. You hear it and you just hear it, you know what it is. You don't have to know or ask questions about or understand how a breeze touches your skin. You simply feel it. So you don't have to be thinking, it's optional. I'm going to invite you to do a little pleasures of presence with me. Now, we can't obviously do a full 20-minute invitation around pleasures of presence, which is what we would do in a forest bathing walk. But I think it will give you a little bit of a flavor for what you might experience. And so we're going to have some audio here. I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes, find yourself in a position that's comfortable, and just simply close your eyes and start to notice your breathing.
Renee, before we get
Yeah.
started, can
Yeah.
you unshare your screen so I can share the video?
Certainly, yes. Stop.
Thank you.
Do you have it?
Yep.
Okay. And so with your eyes closed, just noticing your calm gentle, normal breath. With your eyes closed, noticing any movement behind your eyelids. Perhaps there's movement behind your eyes. Colors. Maybe light and darkness. Bringing your attention to your breath. Notice how the air feels as it comes into your body through your nostrils. Maybe lengthening your breath, taking it deeper into your body. Noticing your shoulders. Perhaps there's something your body is asking for. Maybe a stretch in your neck. Bringing your attention to your hearing. Simply noticing the sounds of this place. What sound is loudest? What is the quietest sound that you hear? What is the farthest away sound that you can hear? What is the nearest sound? Perhaps it's the sound of your own breath. When you're ready, just go ahead and open your eyes.
Renee,
What
we
are
did
you?
your notes.
Okay. I think it's fine for now. I'm just going to ask people just to think to yourself, what are you noticing? And how can you begin to incorporate nature into your health plan? You can think about doing a sit spot where you give yourself permission to sit either occasionally or regularly, doing nothing, allowing yourself to simply notice with your senses. You could find a local or virtual forest bathing walk to join. You can visit your yard, a nearby park, sit with a plant or a tree, getting to know it. You can wander slowly while exploring with your senses, with curiosity, and free yourself of agendas and expectations and get to know nature. And then I'll just leave with some resources and references. There are at the Three Rivers Park District, they do offer forest bathing. There's the Forest Bathing Finder. And then there are lots of forest bathing experiences offered through community education in the metro area. And there's a fantastic book by Ben Page called Healing Trees, A Pocket Guide to Forest Bathing, which I highly recommend. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renee. That was so peaceful and calming, very much needed. But thank you so much for your time and for the very enlightening presentation. The insights that you shared today not only deepened our understanding of the therapeutic practice that nature can bring in forest bathing, but also just how that we can reconnect with nature in such a meaningful way. And I will say I loved your statement that we are nature and that nature is health. So thank you again, Renee. So now we have a few minutes for Q&A. And before we move on to Q&A, I just wanted to let everyone know that there will be a survey that will be emailed shortly following today's session. So don't forget to complete that for a chance to win a swag bag. So Renee, we've had a few questions that came to us directly, but if folks that are live on the call today have some questions, please submit them in the Q&A for Renee to answer live. But to just kick us off with some of the questions. So in our digital age, how do you suggest that people balance technology use with immersing themselves in nature? So what are your tips on completely just plugging off?
I'm glad for this question because I should have made a comment about this. You know, when you go out on a forest bathing walk, or if you're just out in nature, we call it forest bathing mode on the phone. Put it on airplane mode if you have to have a phone with you. But it's really would be great practice to go out in nature and free yourself of technology, of your phone. leave it in the car.
Okay, thank you for that. And actually, on that note then, how do you address just safety concerns, especially for those, who might be venturing out alone and if they're leaving, like their phones, etc., away?
I think it's always important to know where you are in nature and to let people know where you are. So, if you need to bring your phone, like I said, put it on airplane mode. If you need to call for safety, you can. When we do a forest bathing walk and it's guided, I always give advice about risks that we might face, whether it be, a poisonous snake or ticks or things like that. So we do talk about that when we do forest bathing. And it's also, I always keep account of how many people are with us, and I ask people to let me know if they need to leave the walk, so that I'm not forgetting somebody in the woods. But I think always just be mindful of letting people know where you are, what time you could be expected back. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are great tips. I see some stuff coming through the Q&A. Let's see here. So with our winter months coming up, how do you suggest we get out in nature?
Dress warmly. One of my first forest bathing walks, a one-on-one that I did in training, was actually in -1 degree. And it was beautiful and awe-inspiring. We have beautiful snow here in Minnesota and ice, and it's just it's a really different experience. But I say be prepared for it, wear your layers, dress warmly, again, let people know where you are. But it can be quite amazing to be out in nature in the snow in Minnesota.
Love that. So just dress
Dress
accordingly.
warmly, yeah. And take breaks. I mean, come in if you need to. Doing forest bathing, you don't have to go out on a 3-hour hike. It can be very close to home. Usually it's less than a half a mile that we're covering in a 3-hour period of time.
And then let's see here. So there is another question about, so how do we adapt principles of forest bathing in urban settings where access to parks is limited?
Sure. I have not done it, but I know that forest bathing can be done with a single tree. And doing that is really getting to know that tree. So you can incorporate the basic principles and using all of the senses and touch the tree, smell the tree, spend time really understanding and getting to know the tree, for instance. People do it with houseplants. We oftentimes think we know something until we actually spend time exploring it with our senses. So even, a pile of leaves, we might think, oh, we know what that is. But when you actually slow down and take the time to, explore the textures, you could explore the texture of a leaf for 15 minutes and touch your skin or your arm and so you can practice it in any place, really.
Love that. Thank you for that. So there was a comment just about the in-person session that a few folks were able to register for. And so they were just asking if the weather will affect the walk at all, being that it will be in the high 30s.
Yeah. I would
I know
say
you
no.
mentioned this.
Yeah, I would say no. I think just dress in layers, wear a hat, bring gloves, and just be prepared to be outside for about an hour and a half, and just have your layers on. It will be fine, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a little shock to our system because we haven't had it be this cold yet, but I think it's going to be just fine.
Thank you, Renee. So I don't see any other questions. So I think we can go ahead and wrap things up, and it looks like we are actually at time. So I'll hand it over to Kaya to close us out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you, Amna. Thank you, Renee. Just a really beautiful way to spend the evening. Really appreciate both your time and your expertise. So we are out of time tonight. As a reminder, the recording will be available on our website by the end of the week. You will also receive an email tonight with a survey. We do read those closely with the hope of continuously improving our process and our programs. And after you submit the survey, you please be sure you enter the drawing to win a swag bag of new stuff from the Masonic Cancer Center. Our next session will be on Tuesday, November 7th, and we will hear from Dr. Veronica Bacanova, who is a professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota. Her work centers around cellular therapies for hematologic malignancies, and she will be providing us an update on cellular therapies. We hope to see you then. And I am dropping a link in the chat for those. If you've not registered and want to get registered for those last two sessions, you can click that link there directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Renee, you can see there are a bunch of comments coming through thanking you for your
Oh,
presentation
that's so
today.
nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.